Have you ever wanted to go back to an ancient time in Scotland? Have you ever wondered if a circle of standing stones could help you do it? This is a video for you. Incidentally, while you're watching, if you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right at any time. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. I'm just outside Kenmore at the bottom end of Loch Tay at Croftmorrig Standing Stones. Archaeologists tell us that there's been a stone circle here in one form or another for 5,000 years. First of all, there was a circle, a wooden post with an open end, a bit like a horseshoe, and then a ceremonial passage coming into the centre. Around 3000 BC, the wooden posts were replaced by an oval set of standing stones aligned to the midsummer full moon. Many years later, another set of larger standing stones were put around the outside and the direction of entry was changed with some graves at the opening. Why the change? We don't know. If you're Scottish, you probably won't know this, but there's a book and a TV series called Outlander where an English woman, Claire Randall, touches a stone circle and she's transported from the 1940s back to the 1740s, just before the 45 uprising. What would it have been like back then? This would have been Campbell country, Redcoat territory. 5 miles to the east is Aberfeldy, where General Wade's Redcoats built a bridge. It was also the place where only a few years before the Black Watch paraded for the first time. Beyond that is Atholl. That was more Jacobite. That's where the Battle of Killiecrankie took place. Is that where the stones take you? It seems more likely that they'd take you back here. This isn't Castle Leoch of Outlander fame. This is a Crannog. Crannogs were common in Scotland and Ireland. They're a form of communal living on the edge of a loch. Could the Bronze or Iron Age people who lived in Crannogs have worshipped at those standing stones 2.5 miles along the River Tay? Could that have been their church and this their home? Let me show you inside. Crannogs were here from as far back as 3,500 BC, right down to the 17th century, but their heyday was from the late Bronze Age into the Iron Age. In the video that I made called How Scotland Got Its Borders, this was not long before the Romans arrived, okay? So you can go back and have a check of that. Now these round houses on stilts were built without hammer or nails, but with craftsmanship and perfection. Woven hazelwood for walls, bracken and ferns for flooring, and the bracken and straw for the roof. Incredible. 700 timbers of hazel, oak and alder, and a fire in the middle of a large room. It might be smoky, but that kills off the beasties in the straw roof. A crannog like this would house a large extended family. Imagine sitting around the central fire hearth, cooking, eating, talking, telling stories. The cuisine wasn't French, but it was probably more sophisticated than you think or you imagine. You know that thing at Christmas where the family gather together around and everyone eats together and chats and laughs and exchanges their news? Here, sitting around this fire, every meal would be like Christmas. Of course, you'd also have animals around about as well, just like the baby Jesus in the stable. It would be fantastic. A Scottish winter can be cold, but there's no need to worry about the elements in a place like this. And as the evening wears on, you might drift off to the side of the crannog and climb into your bunk bed. Maybe in the background you can still hear music. We know that even back then they could make flutes and lyres. In fact, archaeologists found the bridge of a lyre that came from the Mediterranean in 500 BC. Music was part of their life. But stories were the essence of life. Stories were woven into the fabric of life. It was how information was passed on. This was an oral culture that continued right through the days of the Jacobites and Clare Randall. From mouth to ear, the secrets passed to how to build these structures. There were no architects' drawings, just stories. They probably would have told their stories in a Brythonic language, a bit like Welsh. Stories of how to make fire, stories of how to weave cloth. What were the best herbs for cooking? What were the best herbs for healing? What was the best strategy for hunting? What was the best strategy for farming? And of course, if needs be, what was the best strategy for fighting? When the Romans invaded under Agricola in 83 AD, the people of the Crannogs were here. Some of them may have left this place and joined with other tribesmen to face the Roman Empire at Mons Graupius, the first recorded battle on Scottish soil. Farming and protection were two of the reasons that the Crannogs existed. Out in the water, you had some protection from wild animals. Also, you could bring tame animals onto the Crannog, and living in the water freed up precious growing land in a mountainous area like this. But remember, not everyone had a Crannog. This was life in the leafy suburbs. It's easy to think of these Iron Age people as being cavemen, but they were much more sophisticated than that. They've been trying to reverse engineer the weaving pattern of some cloth that archaeologists discovered. But with all our modern technology, they can't quite master the technique of how our ancestors did it. Now, I say archaeologists, let me explain. These Crannogs are common around Scotland and Ireland. Here in Loch Tay, they found the remains of 18 around the loch. But further up the loch on the other side near Ferrymans, underwater archaeologists found a collapsed Crannog fantastically preserved anaerobically beneath the mud. They meticulously put together the lives of our ancestors who lived there, what they ate, what they drank, how they cooked. They even found the preserved pieces of cloth that I mentioned they're using to re-engineer the weaving process. And if you come here and visit the Crannog, you can see how they lived and experience the technology that they used back in the Iron Age. They were able to work out how these early Perthshire people could take alder trees and drive them into the mud before binding them together with tenon joints to build a home to last. Of course, eventually, every house wears out, and Crannogs too. You might have to replace one stilt that rotted, shore up another, and gradually, over several generations of use, it's just worn out and has to be abandoned. Without maintenance, decay really sets in. Stilts shatter, floors fall, ceilings crumble, and the edifice tumbles into the loch. Over time, this silts up to form a mound which seeds. Plants and trees grow, and in time, it's just another little island that nobody remembers a Crannog was ever there. I often drive past the loch and see a little islet and a clump of trees and wonder, was that a home to a Bronze Age man or an Iron Age family? Thankfully, due to some underwater archaeologists and lots of volunteers, we can experience what life was like for one of those families. Sometimes when I make these videos, I want to tell you a specific story about some special person or a particular monarch or event that I found interesting. To be honest, today I just wanted to bring you to a special place. Loch Tay is one of my favourite places in the world. And somehow there's a feeling about the Crannog that I don't get anywhere else. I can never communicate to you all the details that you'll learn from the archaeologists and the storytellers in this living museum. None of the images that you'll see on screen will ever quite get over the beauty of this place. Or, for that matter, the taste of the cream scones and the Ferrymans in on this side of the loch, or the paper boat on the other side of the loch. If you want those things, I've left information in the description below. You'll have to come here and experience it for yourself. I mean, Doc is going to be a lamb. Cheery and Rasta.